Hi, this is Rev Ed with today's devotional from Luke chapter 1, verses 5 through 14. In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking blamelessly in the commandments and statutes of the Lord. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and both were advanced in years. Now, while he was serving as priest before God when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And the whole multitude of people were praying outside at the hour of incense. And there appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And Zechariah was troubled when he saw him, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth." You know, Zechariah and Elizabeth are wonderful examples of faithfulness, even in the spite of great disappointment in their lives. They're old now, and even though the angel makes reference to Zechariah's prayer for a son, there's no previous reference to them praying. They've probably at this point given up praying for a son. You know that hope was with them when they were first married, and maybe on into their middle years. But now they are advanced in age, and Elizabeth is considered barren, absolutely unable to bear the fruit of life. Sometimes life feels that way, doesn't it? It feels empty and barren. It feels as though we don't need to keep praying anymore because it's obvious that God has said no to our prayers. But what I want you to notice is that in spite of that deep and abiding disappointment, Zechariah still gets up and does his work as a priest. He is faithful in what the Lord has called him to do, going through the work that God has appointed for him, trying to be as faithful as he can, in spite of what he believes is the deepest disappointment in his life. And what we need to understand is that the Christmas season is all about waiting for the fulfillment of God's promises. Often we feel like we are waiting and waiting and waiting for a situation to resolve. There's even a little note at the beginning of this passage where Luke tells us it was in the days of Herod the king. Herod was a ruthless and terrifying ruler. He was not the model of a good leader. These are the forces of the world that surround us when we are waiting and hoping for something better. And the coming of our Messiah is the promise of God's good reign, which will rule over all the earth one of these days. So there's waiting, and there's waiting, and there's more waiting. But we do not wait as those who have no hope. We wait as those who know that God will keep his promises. And so in our waiting, we are to be like Zechariah. We are to be faithful in whatever it is that God has called us to do. Remember these great words from Isaiah, the 40th chapter. "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to the one who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Often it feels like we are waiting on the Lord and he is simply not appearing. And yet waiting does not mean being passive. You know, when you think about the way an eagle mounts up on its wings, it has to throw itself out of its nest, which is usually perched high in a tree or on the crag of some mountain. And it catches the warm updrafts of wind, and it just sails effortlessly on the wind that is lifting it. So we too have to throw ourselves out of our nest. We can't hide at home waiting for God to do something in our lives. We have to be like Zechariah. We have to get out of the nest and go and catch the wind of the Spirit wherever the Spirit leads us, waiting for the Lord to show up and do what he's promised to do. And because he is the Lord our God, who loves us with an everlasting love, we know he will keep his promises. And the coming of Jesus at Christmas is a reminder to us that God fulfills his word in his time and not ours, but he fulfills his word at the right time. And all will be for his glory and for our good. Wait upon the Lord and do so with hope and with joy, knowing that what he has promised for you will be fulfilled. God's blessings be upon you this day.